It's every female student's nightmare. A teacher in a position of trust secretly recording them for his own personal gratification. A former teacher in London, Ontario has been sentenced to 6 months in jail in a landmark ruling on voyeurism. Ryan Jarvis, 41 years old, made secret recordings of young female students' breasts and cleavage using a secret pen camera. The CBC's Amy Dodge has the details from London.
When Ryan Jarvis was a high school teacher, he carried with him a pen. Inside that pen was a camera. He used that camera to secretly film the chest areas of at least 27 female students as young as 14. This case has set a precedent in Canada. Originally, it was acquitted here in London because the judge couldn't rule whether or not these videos were being used for a sexual purpose. But this case has made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, where all 9 judges say, yes, this was being done for the sake of sexual intent, and that this was violating the privacy rights of these students in the common areas. Today was very emotional for some of these students who once again are now grown adults, 23, 24 years old, back in court today, sitting face to face with Ryan Jarvis years later. They can't be identified because of a publication ban, but I did speak with some of them. And you know, they say this has changed their lives. They've suffered from anxiety, from PTSD, and they also kind of look over their shoulder when they're walking down the street or when they hear the click of a pen. This has forever changed their sense of self-security. And this court case, as I mentioned, setting a precedent across Canada and how we see privacy laws. This is the first time that someone with voyeurism is going to jail and serving a sentence. Again, Ryan Jarvis facing 6 months in jail, 12 months probation. Amy Dodge, CBC News, London.
Joining me now from Montreal is Barb McQuarrie. Barb is the Community Director of the Centre for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children in the Faculty of Education at Western University. Barb, welcome to you.
Thank you.
What do you make of this sentencing decision? 6 months in jail, 1 year probation.
I think this is a fair decision. I think it has a deterrent effect. Our criminal justice system is about deterrence, and it's about justice, and it's about rehabilitation. And I think that the sentence hits the right mark for those objectives.
The judge in the case said that he didn't think that Ryan Jarvis understood just how serious his crimes were because he didn't seek counseling until just earlier this year. Is that common? I mean, that people who commit these kinds of crimes don't understand how serious they are?
I think it often is common. I think that people who commit these kinds of crimes are very focused on themselves and their own needs. They don't have a lot of empathy. They don't have a lot of ability to feel or see things from the perspective of the other, particularly others that they're victimizing.
And let's talk about the victims themselves. What kind of an impact does it have? Maybe you've seen other cases like this where girls are secretly filmed by someone that they trusted.
So I haven't talked to these girls, but in other cases where I've supported women or girls who have been through this experience, they feel their sense of safety in the world is completely shattered. Their ability to trust is really seriously compromised. And we would hope that they would be able to contain that sense to this incident. But the nature of trauma is that it's not easy to contain. And so that difficulty in trusting spills over oftentimes into all areas of their lives. And they generally have a lot of difficulty with relationships.
What do you mean it spills into all areas of their lives?
I mean that they were filmed in a very specific environment, but their sense of not being safe and their sense of not being able to trust will extend well beyond that school environment. As you said earlier, most of them are adults now. Some of them won't be even in post-secondary school, or if they are, they're certainly not in the secondary school where this incident happened. But that can't make them, just not going back to the same place isn't enough to help them feel safe. So that sense of they can be monitored, somebody can invade their intimate space, that's going to carry with them throughout wherever they go.
And there's a sexual aspect to this as well. It wasn't like he was filming their feet.
Exactly, exactly. And so, you know, we can expect that that's going to impact on these girls' sense of healthy sexuality and their own sense of safety in the context of sexuality.
Why is that? Why does the fact that one person, you know, took a picture of their cleavage, let's say, for example, why would that impact, or how would that impact other relationships going forward?
It's not a rational thing. So cognitively, you can say, I can say, and the girls themselves can say, this was about this person who had very malicious intent, who had no boundaries, who completely disregarded and disrespected personal space. They can say that rationally, but our bodies and our minds don't work like that. That sense of having been violated, it's something that comes up. And so I'm sure that most of the girls, hopefully all of the girls, have received therapy, and that's something that they'll have to work on, is a sense of regaining safety, being able to trust. But it will have been shattered by what happened, and it's not enough to try and rationalize your way through it.
Yeah. There were some very different judgments at lesser courts about this case. For example, a lesser court found that since the students were filmed on camera at school for security reasons, they couldn't expect privacy anyway. What's your response to that?
My response to that is, I think we need to sometimes look at these things with a grain of common sense. Of course, we've all accepted a compromise in terms of our privacy for the sake of safety. That's why we have cameras. That doesn't give anybody the right to violate my very personal, intimate body space. And that a judge actually wasn't able to understand that and incorporate that into a decision immediately, I do find that concerning. All
right, and the other issue that it made its way into appeal is, even though none of his victims were aware, he was secretly, sorry, scratch that. The other issue is the fact that whether he was using this for sexual purposes or not.
And again, I think we look at it, we have a unanimous decision of the Supreme Court judges. Who films girls' breasts and cleavage for anything other than sexual purposes? It's the society we live in. It's, you know, we sexualize young women. We know that this is the purpose. We see it around us every day. So again, I think we just have to bring some common sense to our analysis of this situation.
What message do you think this sends?
I think this sends a message that harm to somebody's sense of safety, somebody's sense of sexual safety, isn't just about physical violation. It can be about things that don't physically touch us, but that certainly shatter what we consider to be our personal boundaries. I think that's very important. That's very important for teachers. That's important for parents to understand. That's important for any single one of us to understand. It doesn't have to be physical to cause a lot of harm.
Barb McQuarrie, Community Director of the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children in the Faculty of Education at Western University tonight. Barb joined us from Montreal. Thank you.
Thank you very much.